Hello, welcome to the Jack Ruby Chronicles, a short story series. Currently available on Amazon Kindle. I'm going to read you some of the story here today. Jack Ruby Chronicles Introduction. Jack Ruby was born in 1974 amidst trouble and terrorism in Northern Ireland. Growing up, he despised bullies, terror and trouble. Trouble was the last thing on his mind, and having navigated almost 50 years of avoiding trouble, he assumed that this would always be the case. So how did Jack Ruby suddenly decide to find trouble? In short, the most precious thing in his life was taken from him. Something irreplaceable, someone irreplaceable. Jack was inconsolable, deeply unhappy and extremely unforgiving. Jack was not alone. In fact, unknown to Jack, there was about to be an unlikely alliance between himself and another group of people, a common cause, a common enemy, and a deep-rooted desire for revenge. Chapter 1. The Beginning of the End. Jack Ruby was married for over 30 years, a bond that was stitched into the fabric of his very soul. Jack never considered that he would be without his wife, ever. In fact, he was convinced that he would die off first, leaving his wife behind on this earth. Until, of course, he was proved wrong. The day in question started out like any other day. His wife, a business-minded, successful lady, was leaving home as normal, making promises of being home early, having dinner, and going for an evening walk. This always sounded great to Jack. The truth, however, was more akin to working late, stuck on traffic, and home too late to eat dinner or walk. Jack couldn't hold it against her. His forgiveness, of course, knowing that she had such a high standard of work ethic that she couldn't walk away until work was finished. This day was different, however. The late went beyond late. Jack tried to call her on her cell phone. No answer. Just the familiar sound of her voicemail asking him to leave a message. Jack had been here before, of course. Despite the unease that he felt, he would reassure himself that any time soon her little green mini car would pull up outside of their house. Except that it didn't. She never came home. Jack contacted his two adult sons. "Is she there with you?" "No," was the consensus. Then the doorbell rang. The unfamiliar sight of a police car outside of his house. Jack's heart began to race. He knew that something wasn't right. The police never had any reason to go to Jack's house. Both he and his wife respected law enforcement and lived quietly and peaceably. So this meant that something was wrong. Jack's feet felt like lead, heavy and clumsy as his heart raced and dragged himself to the door, expecting bad news. "Hello," said Jack. "Is everything okay?" The police officer responded, "Is this the residence of Mrs. Ruby?" "Yes," replied Jack, "I am her husband." Once again Jack asked, "Is everything okay?" This time with more force and anxiousness. The police officer then asked if he could come in to talk to Jack. Jack's mind was racing with fear and anxious feelings. He was dreading the next step of the conversation. The police officer then said, "Mr. Ruby, there's been an incident." Jack interrupted, really on edge now. "What kind of incident?" "Mr. Ruby, I'm sad to say that your wife has been killed," said the police officer. Jack began to shake. He just could not believe that this was happening. She was a good driver, a safe driver, and she maintained her car well. "Did someone crash into her?" said Jack. "No, sir. She was shot in a criminal incident outside a business conference," said the police officer. Jack paused for a moment. No. This cannot be true. There must be a mistake. She gives talks on food and business. You must be mistaken." "No, sir. Unfortunately, your wife and another lady have been killed. We will need you to formally identify your wife, sir," said the police officer. Jack felt sick, weak, faint, and that he must be having a nightmare. But he wasn't having a nightmare. This was real. Everything went blank for Jack at this point. Blurred reality like a bad dream. Weeks and months passed. Then there was a court case. The horrifying details were revealed of how his wife and her friend were shot multiple times in brutal fashion. Her little mini car was riddled with bullet holes. Jack's heart wrenched with pain at the sight of her favourite little car and the thought of how his wife's life had come to a brutal end. Jack stood in court alone. He did not want his sons to see any of this. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you hear, you cannot unhear. Once you know, you cannot unknow. So he would bear this burden alone. A small group of people came to represent the other lady involved. Jack's wife and the lady in question were developing a food-related business together, and no one could understand why this happened. No one was in the courthouse dock. Police had failed to find the person or persons responsible. Months of feeling sorry, low and depressed had now turned to anger. Jack wanted the perpetrators to burn in hell for what they did. Mr. Ruby, have you anything to say?" remarked the judge. Jack hadn't been listening. He regularly would mind drift to thoughts of revenge. "Mr. Ruby, for a final time, have you anything to say?" said the judge, this time with more force. Jack looked out across the courtroom. All eyes were on Jack. He stood up, straightened his stature and focused his gaze with purpose. "Yes, I do," he said calmly, with honesty and commitment. "I will promise all of you, right here and now, that I, Jack Ruby, will have revenge, or vengeance, or justice, or whatever phrase that you educated people prefer. Know this, I will take away all and everything that is of value from the scum that took away from me the most valuable thing in my life. I will find them, I will remove everything from them, I will hurt them in equal measure, and until I die I will not rest until justice is served properly." Small gasps could be heard amongst the courthouse visitors. The journalists were busy scribbling notes for tomorrow's newspaper headline. Some felt sorry for Jack, except the judge, of course. "Mr. Ruby, I must remind you," the judge was interrupted by Jack. "No, let me remind you. I will have my revenge. Now, if we're finished here talking about how you and the police have completely failed my wife and her friend, I'm leaving. I have jobs to do, namely all of yours, judge, jury and executioner." Further gasps emitted around Jack. The small group related to the other lady nodded at Jack, looking him directly in the eye. The type of eye contact that is almost telepathic in nature. It felt to Jack like they related to his words, his feelings, and felt Jack's pain in equal measure. A visual nod and agreement, bound by revenge, vengeance or justice. This connection in Jack's mind was the beginning of the end. A new bond, not from love or kindness, but a new bond born out of anger, vengeance and sheer unblemished hate for the unknown scum that took away the precious existence of a most loved one. Chapter 2. The Invitation. Following Jack's outburst in the courtroom, he never had the opportunity to speak to the group of people representing the other lady. The judge, in his wisdom, believed that Jack was upsetting the other group and he had Jack removed from the courtroom. As things evolved, he couldn't have been more wrong, the judge that is. Something deep resonated with Jack and the little group of people. Something primordial, something deep, dark, but true to their nature and Jack's. The representatives of the other lady weren't upset. They were struck by the honesty of a deep-rooted desire for justice that resonated like a frequency throughout the entire courtroom. Every fibre in Jack's body screamed for justice and, of course, vengeance. This wasn't a flaw, this was the truth. This was Jack. This was honour, and this was vengeance. This was also exactly how they felt too, the family, the representatives of the other lady. Jack truthfully didn't know who they were. It had all been a terrible blurry dream that he could not wake up from. Jack could no longer feel sorry. It didn't exist in him. He was consumed with anger and vengeance. Jack would exercise in his gymnasium, he would walk, he would run, and he would spend his time imagining scenarios of how he would deal with the scum that took his wife away. As he was arriving home one evening, a car was waiting at his house. Jack never had visitors. He was never really a sociable person and lived most of his life through his wife. I suppose it's the local police detective again, thought Jack, here once again to tell me of the non-existent progress in the now cold case investigation. An agile young girl exited the car from the passenger side. It was twilight outside Jack's house and he couldn't quite see her full features. Jack often observed small details, such as agile. She moved smoothly and elegantly from the car. Jack was in his 50s, was stiff, sore, and had pain in most places. Jack was like a vehicle that had high mileage and a hard existence. This girl had to be young. Jack could never exit a vehicle in such a smooth manner, not unless you took him back 30 years. The young girl seemed to glide across the gravel driveway, whilst Jack thudded his size 11s and slightly dragged his left foot like it was heavier than the right. Before he could speak, the young lady was up front and in his personal space. "Mr. Ribby? Mr. Jack Ribby?" she said. "Yes, that's me," said Jack. Jack's vengeance also had another side. Jack wanted to die. He could not enjoy life without his wife. He secretly hoped that his outburst in the courtroom and the stories in the newspapers would get him killed. He was almost willing this moment to be that life-ending moment when he noticed an envelope in his hand. How did that get there, he thought. In the blink of an eye, this young lady had glided out of a car, approached Jack, inserted an envelope in his hand, and before he could speak, there was the click of the car door closing. What? How thought Jack. The car drove away, leaving Jack with unanswered questions. Who was that girl? Who was driving the car? How do they know me? How do they know where I live? How did that girl get that envelope in my hand so fast? And so on. Jack entered his house, closed the door behind himself. If they wanted me dead, I'd be dead already. He sat down at his breakfast table and looked at his mysterious envelope. This wasn't just any plain envelope. This was a high quality handmade paper envelope. It felt thick, embossed texture with fine calligraphy across it in fine ink. The envelope was sealed with a red wax seal, stamped into it an image of a dragon. Jack had never in his life ever received such a refined item. His curiosity beckoned, yet at the same time he wanted to savour the quality of the item that he had just received. He knew that once he had broken the seal, it would never be the same again. For a brief moment, he pondered. He cut the envelope open with a sharp kitchen knife, something that he never did. This, however, seemed to require a more ceremonial opening. Inside the envelope was a most beautiful piece of decorated paper. The fine paper had hand-painted flowers, a dragon, and calligraphy in both English and what Jack assumed to be Chinese language. It read as follows. Mr. Jack Ribby, you are most cordially invited to attend a dinner invitation by our most gracious host, Mr. Liu. A car will collect you, Mr. Ribby, from your residence and transport you in comfort to attend dinner. It is Mr. Liu's heartfelt desire that you should attend, and respectfully we would request that dinner attire is formal and respectful in the presence of Mr. Liu. Saturday, 1900 hours, Mr. Liu's car will collect you at 1700 hours promptly. Jack's mind couldn't understand how he'd received such an invitation. For a start, he had no idea who Mr. Liu was. Jack didn't have wealthy friends and he didn't know anybody from China. The invitation didn't say where the dinner was located, what restaurant, what hotel or what town. He got the message though, clothing. Jack's attire was casual at best. Even his old one suit fits all occasions wouldn't do this time. Tomorrow I'm getting a new suit, thought Jack. Saturday when it comes, I'm going. I don't know who this is, but I'm going to find out. What do they want with me? I'm a nobody, thought Jack. I'm a nobody with a fine invitation and a chauffeur-driven collection service. I'm a nobody who's about to get a new suit, and live or die, I'm going to find out what this is about. Chapter 3. The Dinner. Saturday seemed to come upon Jack fast. At 16:30 hours, Jack was standing in his hallway, dressed in a new suit with new shoes. Jack felt so uncomfortable, so much away from his normal, comfortable attire. Jack was used to short-sleeved shirts, chinos, hiking boots and a hiking jacket. Yes, you've guessed correctly. Jack loved the outdoors. He preferred fresh air, being outside, and there was absolutely no point in wearing fancy clothes when being outside led to Jack getting rained on and splashed in mud. He glanced out through the window of his house again, no sign of the car yet. Jack was one of those people who believed in punctuality. the art of looking ahead, planning and being on time. Truth be told, he felt happier when he was early, never mind on time. Hence Jack was ready 30 minutes before collection time. Like a Swiss clock, the transport arrived exactly at 1700 hours. A black Mercedes S-Class with dark glass. It looked like a diplomat specification, the finish, the hum of the V8 engine, all very clearly demonstrating expensive taste. Jack was a car man and he could appreciate a good car. He drove old cars for years, whatever he could afford, and his current car, probably the most ostentatious car he's ever owned, was a 2017 BMW 3 Series diesel. Very economical, great safety rating, proper handbrake and quick enough for spirited driving when needed. Anyway, we'll talk about cars at greater length later. For now, let's go to dinner. Jack received the VIP service. The passenger had exited the car to take Jack's coat, opened the rear door and gestured for Jack to enter the vehicle. Jack sank into the soft leather seat in the rear of the Mercedes. He admired the finish and the luxury feel of the car. In the front seats of the car, a driver and passenger, both male, Chinese, and both nodded politely at Jack but did not speak. Low volume classical music played in the car and Jack watched the world go by, reminding him that the only time this happened in the past was when he was a passenger in his wife's little green Mini. His mind began to drift again. Jack's focus returned as the car reached a large set of ornate security gates. Security staff opened the gates. Jack counted 4 Chinese security guards, 2 male and 2 female. The car was ushered in quickly and the gates were closed promptly behind as Jack peered out through the rear window, even more curious now. A long avenue curved in an elegant line towards a huge house. The car arrived smoothly at a set of entrance steps, stopped, and once again the passenger assisted Jack as he exited the vehicle. House staff were now standing at the entrance to welcome Jack. "Good evening, Mr. Ruby, and welcome. Mr. Liu is expecting you. Please come in." Jack thanked the staff as he was ushered in. Although the house had the outside appearance of an English stately home, the inside was more akin to an imperial oriental palace. Stunningly beautiful and in a classic artistic way. Themes of Chinese architecture, paintings and cultural antiquities, Jack simply could not comprehend the beauty. One single antique vase was probably worth more money than Jack had ever earned in his lifetime of wages. Jack was escorted to a huge wooden, ornately carved set of doors. The doors were opened as if by a mystical force from within that seemed to sense Jack's presence from the other side of the doors. Jack tentatively entered the room. It was an understatement to say that Jack was out of his comfort zone at this point, maybe even out of his depth. The new suit felt hot, the shoes felt tight, his neck felt like it was being strangled with his tie. However, the room completely blew his mind. A show-stopping dining table stretched out before him with finely carved solid wood sculptures, dragons, hand-painted images, and set with opulent gold, silver and crystal diningware. Jack sensed that he was standing with his mouth open, gazing in awe. He recovered himself and politely said, "Good evening, everybody." There were 8 people at the table. Jack made eye contact with each person, and each person made eye contact with Jack, nodding in acknowledgement. One person looked familiar, a young girl. Jack assumed that this was the person who delivered his invitation. Jack was shown to his seat. His favourite drink and brand of sparkling water were already at his seating place. How did they know that he only drank sparkling water? Ever more curious, Jack wondered, was it coincidental that this was his favourite brand too? Mr. Liu, the head of the table, stood up. "Welcome, Mr. Jack Ruby," he said. Others stood, nodded and welcomed him. Jack politely thanked the group and nodded in acknowledgement to all around him. "Now we will dine, for we have much to discuss and it would be impolite to discuss business with a guest on an empty stomach," said Mr. Liu. Jack's curiosity was running wild now. Business, thought Jack. I'm not a businessman by any means. Let's see where this is going. The food was delectable, delicious, and probably the richest dining experience that Jack has ever had in his lifetime, but he just couldn't silence the questions in his mind of what was coming next. Strategically seated next to Jack was a familiar face, and from memory was someone from the courtroom. In fact, other faces began to resurface from Jack's blurred memories. The group in the courtroom, the eye contact, the people that Jack seemed to connect with following his outburst in front of the judge. Jack thought about it long and hard. He realised with some unease that he was now in the control of a group of people linked to Jack by an awful event. They both had lost someone precious. The person next to Jack, the only other person, European person in the room, introduced himself. He was a lawyer. "I want to put your mind at ease, Jack. Mr. Liu would like to talk to you in a private setting about your terrible loss. You have something in common." The lawyer added, "It is totally voluntary, Jack, and you are free to leave if you wish. Mr. Liu, however, believes that both of you can be of assistance to each other." Jack's curiosity at this, his rage, his sorrow, his desire for justice, and his heart was racing now. Nonetheless, Jack agreed. He had come this far, and now it was time to hear what Mr. Liu had to say. Staff appeared to clear the table in an instant as soon as Jack had agreed to talk with Mr. Liu. Jack was surprised how fast this seemed. Mr. Liu looked directly at Jack. "I know your story, Mr. Ruby," he said. Jack sat silent. Mr. Liu continued, "We have been eager like yourself to seek justice. My name is Mr. Liu. This is my niece, Li Na, twin sister of Li Wei, the lady that was killed alongside your dear wife. We as a family would respectfully inquire from you, Mr. Ruby, if you would agree to confidential discussions on this most heart-wrenching case of sorrows. We all bear the unfortunate burden that has been thrust upon us. However, it is imperative upon your very existence, Mr. Ruby, that once you enter discussions with us, there is no return. You, me, and all the family will be bound by an eternal oath of honour, justice, and revenge. So, Mr. Ruby, I ask you, do you wish to proceed? If you wish to leave, you must leave now, and of course you leave unbound and free to live unhindered in your own search for justice. If you choose to stay, I believe that we can achieve justice." "Judge, jury, and executioner, as you stated under oath and honour in the courtroom," said Mr. Liu. "Do you accept our terms?" said Mr. Liu. Jack pondered a moment, not through hesitation, but through measured response. He looked directly into the eyes of Mr. Liu and then Li Na. He reached out his hands, palms facing upward, slightly tilted at his wrists, with one wrist positioned towards Mr. Liu and one wrist positioned towards Li Na. They stood in a triangular shape in the shadow of a large tapestry of a dragon. Symbolic maybe, prophetic maybe, fatefully, definitely. Mr. Liu, Li Na and Jack never dropped eye contact with each other as they stood there. Jack finally spoke. "Each of you place your fingers across my pulse points on my wrists and look deep into my eyes. My name is Jack Ruby. I have lost the most prized possession any human being could ever have. I am nothing and a nobody in this so-called civilized world. I am burning through to my very core in my hunger for justice and revenge. I, Jack Ruby, promise upon my life that I am determined to achieve justice and revenge. There is no other way out of this scenario. There is no happy ending. There will be justice. There will be revenge. If I can help you and in turn you can help me, then I accept, with one caveat on our contract. A non-negotiable caveat, an oath of honour and a promise that I request equally from you." Mr. Liu, still maintaining eye contact and a grip on Jack's hand, spoke. "Please elaborate, Mr. Ruby." Jack once again reminded Mr. Liu and Li Na of his previous request that they look deep into his eyes whilst holding his pulse points, and he spoke. "I don't know either of you, but I feel something inside, something deep, like a frequency that resonates between us. I sense something beyond me, my soul, and my fate. It is this deep thirst for justice, this deep-rooted desire for vengeance that sings through my every fibre of my body right now. Something that no law enforcement agency could ever deliver in my lifetime. What's left of it. My caveat, my oath of honour and your oath of honour and bind to me is this. I, Jack Ruby, promise to help you to the death, to seek justice, vengeance, and remove everything of value from those that took mine. In return, If and when you decide to kill me, you must promise under an oath of honour to kill me in the swiftest, most pain-free fashion that you can. Mr. Lou and Lena didn't even blink. Their eyes on Jack were locked and emotionless. Jack continued, I sense that we understand each other without words. I feel that we are bound somehow, and only death will be the unbinding of that. So yes, I will promise you if you promise me in return. I may not walk away from this. In fact, I don't want to. I am happy to put my head on the block if that's what it takes. First, your promise. Jack took a deep breath. It felt as though he hadn't breathed properly for the last few minutes. Mr. Lou spoke. What makes you think that we will kill you, Mr. Ruby? Jack responded. It's merely my gut feeling, Mr. Lou. I would suggest that what I'm about to say, I say with respect and as polite as I possibly can. You look to me like a powerful man, a man who has a powerful family, business and connections. You live in what I regard as palatial comfort, with private security, with great influence and control. If you could solve this problem with an internal trusted allies, you would. There must be a limiting factor, something that requires you to step beyond the trusted boundary, beyond your skilled personnel and assets. If my gut feeling is correct, you need a Trojan horse, an expendable disposable asset that can be assisted, instructed, educated and trained for one specific purpose. For some strange reason, you need me. It's obvious that I would need someone like you to help me, but not the other way around. You, Mr. Lou, with the greatest respect, are a dangerous man to be feared. That's the impression that I get. Your niece, Lena, is even more dangerous than you, I suspect. She moves silent and agile like a predator cat. Judging by her movements, she is highly trained in martial arts. Her poise, her stance, her reactions all point towards that. Am I correct? Said Jack. Mr. Lou, steely-eyed and focused on Jack, replied, Yes, you are correct, Mr. Ruby. Chapter 4, The Bind and the Vow. Mr. Lou, Lena and Jack had remained standing under the gaze of the dragon tapestry for what seemed like a long time. At least Jack thought it was long. His new suit was stiff, hot and uncomfortable. His shoes were tight and equally unpleasant compared to his normal casual outfit of hiking gear and boots. Jack longed to be outdoors right now, to breathe fresh, moist air and feel rain on his face. Unfortunately, every great event in our lives requires uncomfortable clothing and hot formal surroundings, at least in Jack's experience anyway. Mr. Lou finally released his gaze from Jack. It reminded Jack of that game that people used to play. You know, the game where you stare at someone's eyes and whoever blinks first is the loser. You don't know it? Well, now you do. Yes, before the internet and constant television, we used to invent games like that. Only, if this were a game, and it definitely is not, Mr. Lou would be a champion, a gaze of steel. Mr. Lou only released his gaze, not his grip on Jack's wrist. Mr. Lou's gaze now met with Lena's eyes. It looked like they knew exactly what each other was thinking, and without speaking. What I'm about to tell you now completely astounded Jack. Lena, maintaining a wrist grip on Jack, returned her gaze to Jack's eyes, as did Mr. Lou. In a split second, with the other hand, she pulled out a blade from somewhere and in one single swift movement unleashed a lightning-fast lateral swipe across both of Jack's wrists. It was so fast that it took Jack some seconds to realise that he was actually cut and bleeding. The return movement of the blade saw Mr. Lou and Lena receive an equally fast swipe across their respective hands whilst maintaining a grip on Jack's. In the time that it took for Jack's mind to comprehend what had just happened, he now realised that the bleeding trio were now positioned over a golden goblet, dripping blood into this ornate chalice. The goblet, or chalice, Jack wasn't sure what to call it, was decorated on the outside with images of a dragon. Jack stood, dumbfounded and in awe at this ritual, and equally astounded at the speed and accuracy of Lena of the blade. At the raising of his other hand, Mr. Lou summoned staff who swiftly and professionally bandaged the open wounds and left as quickly as they had arrived. Sitting neatly on a table was a contract of honour. This can only be described as something that one would see in a museum. Beautiful handcrafted paper with fine calligraphy in English and Chinese, embossed with intricate designs and headed with a stunning image of a dragon. The blood in the golden goblet or chalice was now mixed in a clockwise circular motion. Mr. Lou was the first to dip an old-fashioned quill into the chalice and then sign his name on the contract. Lee Na was second and Jack was last. He had just signed a contract in blood, a blood honour contract binding all three of them until the death. He didn't fear it. He relished in the seriousness of it all. To Jack, this gave him hope. Hope that justice and revenge would follow. No one would go this far and fail. The process wasn't finished yet. The chalice containing the blood was emptied into a red liquid wax that was being kept warm in an old, antiquated wax melting container sitting slightly above a lighted ceremonial candle. The blood was mixed with the wax, again in a clockwise circular fashion, this time with an ornamental dagger. Mr. Lou took the container and poured 3 equal-sized blobs of hot wax onto the parchment contract of honour, each blob beside each name. A very old stamping pattern of a dragon was then used to imprint the design of a dragon into the warm wax blob, thus creating a seal, a bind, a vow, and a contract born in blood. Chapter 5. The Knowledge. Mr. Lou waved his hand once again. The grand doors opened, revealing another unexplored room. This room, unlike the others, was modern in design. Before entering the room, Jack was searched by a security agent. An unfortunate necessity, Mr. Ruby, but we must be thorough, said Mr. Lou. Jack's cell phone was removed from his pocket and placed in a signal-proof, soundproof lockbox. A mere precaution, Mr. Ruby. We take our privacy very seriously. You will have your phone returned at the end of the meeting. This room is soundproof, penetration-proof from electronic surveillance and other such spy equipment. We will be able to talk freely here in privacy, said Mr. Lou. The thick, heavy doors closed and sealed tight behind them. Jack was invited to take a seat. State-of-the-art screens and equipment surrounded a long rectangular table. Jack wondered what could possibly be next. Following another wave of Mr. Lou's hand, a young spectacled man introduced himself as Mr. Deshi. Screens across the room lit up with images, names, known locations, connections and involvement levels. Jack just stared, processing this explosion of data and information in his mind, and then it all clicked into place. This was an investigative information gathering on a massive scale. Compared to the musty-smelling antiquated files and sketches that the police had, this was beyond space-age technology to Jack. The Dragon had access to the best computer graduates in China, the best law practitioners, resources and finances to allocate to the most thorough investigation imaginable. Everything pointed to a group known as the Hierarchy, a group of thugs and terrorists who made millions through illicit crime activity. Jack was now in a very small group of people with access to information specifically focused on the murder of Mrs. Ruby, Jack's wife, and Li Wei, Lee Na's twin sister. Jack was educated about the Hierarchy, who they were and why they murdered Li Wei and Jack's wife. Li Wei was a bright, intelligent young woman who wanted to start a food-based business with the best of intentions to prove that she could be successful without family influence. Jack's wife was a successful businesswoman who wanted to move away from her corporate employer to a self-employed business and prove that she too could be successful. Over time, Mrs. Ruby and Li Wei found that their aspirations had much in common. Positively charged and excited, it seemed that they were destined for success in launching a new food-based business and brand, combining their skills together. Jack cast his mind back and briefly smiled at the memory of his wife, explaining this new business model to him. It all seemed complicated to Jack, but he knew that if anyone could do it, it would be his wife and her new business partner. But why were they assassinated? In one word, a grudge. In short, the Hierarchy are criminal scum and greedy. The Dragon, on the other hand, is a multinational billion-dollar property developer group with links to finance, construction, manufacturing, shipping, heavy engineering and food production. All achievements are through hard graft and business acumen. Whilst overseeing a property development scheme in a docklands area of Ireland, Li Wei was also working on her own business ideas and had set up a collaboration with Mrs. Ruby. The hierarchy, not having a good name, had failed the tender process to bid for lands for sale for development in the Docklands. So they turned their attention to Leeway. They offered to buy in on the project through the Dragon's good name, but Leeway refused. They also offered to provide so-called protection at a cost, and again Leeway refused them and their attempts to coerce her through fear. Not wanting to trouble her uncle with these threats, Leeway felt that she could prove that she could deal with the problems herself, and by that I mean that she could discourage them in an honest fashion and legal manner. Unfortunately, not all people play by the rules. The hierarchy were an undisciplined bunch of thugs. As far as they were concerned, they would frighten the little Chinese girl and take over the project themselves. And so this is where fate intertwined the pathways of Jack, Mrs. Ruby, Leeway, Lena and Mr. Lou. Chapter 6. The Day of Death. Jack sat and watched the screen nearest to him whilst listening to Mr. Deshi. He could see security camera recordings, road camera footage, piece by piece tracking a familiar sight, Mrs. Ruby's little green mini clubman. The first question that came to Jack's mind: how is it that the police couldn't provide any of this information in court? The second question: why did they not act on this information? Jack said nothing and continued to observe. Mrs. Ruby and Leeway were in the little green mini clubman car, approaching a parking space nose in. You see, the mini clubman car has a rear barn doors, so that you need free access to retrieve luggage or equipment from the rear of the car. You can't reverse into a space and leave yourself a quick exit, which Jack always complained about. As the two ladies were retrieving their bags and business equipment, a motorbike with a pillion passenger pulled up next to them. Leeway instinctively jumped into action, almost as if she knew what was about to happen. The pillion passenger had a gun. Instead of running away, Leeway ran towards the motorbike. It seemed that the gun had jammed as she was running towards the motorbike. Leeway leapt into the air, launching a massive kick to the head of the pillion passenger with the gun. The passenger was knocked off the motorbike unconscious. The rider of the motorbike, impacted by the motion, lost his balance and fell over onto the road, with the motorbike landing hard on the rider's leg. With the gunman unconscious and the rider pinned to the ground with a heavy motorbike, Leeway turned to run back towards Mrs. Ruby's car. She could be seen gesturing and shouting at Mrs. Ruby to get back into the car. Mrs. Ruby, standing in shock as this unfolded, dropped her business material and bag and jumped back into the driver's seat. Leeway and Mrs. Ruby were now inside the car. Further camera footage showed Mrs. Ruby attempting to reverse away, only to get blocked in by a van. Two more gunmen exited the van, faces covered and holding machine gun type weapons. Both sides of the little car were absolutely riddled with bullets. Jack's anger boiled inside so strong, his fists clenched, his heart in his chest was about to burst out through his ribs. He slammed his fists off the desk and grabbed the edges of the desk with his hands, attempting to restrain his anger whilst he seethed with rage. Mr. Deshi paused and looked at Mr. Lou for instruction. Mr. Lou once again made eye contact with Jack. "I feel your pain, Mr. Ruby. We all do, believe me. We will use that pain. We will eat, sleep and breathe that pain. We will have vengeance, I promise you." Jack took a deep breath and nodded. He imagined that Mr. Lou had already watched this 1,000 times, and the pain is the same every time. "Please continue," said Jack. Mr. Lou nodded to Mr. Deshi. Another hour had passed and Jack's mind was simmering like a pot of different ingredients on a hot stove. It was becoming a lot to take in for one evening, and Jack was getting tired. Thankfully, Mr. Lou spoke again. "We will continue this tomorrow. Mr. Ruby, we have arranged accommodation here for you with fresh clothes and incidentals for your needs. May I suggest that we retire for the night and resume tomorrow after breakfast?" Jack agreed. Jack was escorted to his room upstairs. In the room there was a comfortable bed, restroom with bath, shower and fresh clothing. Hiking clothing, new and in Jack's sizes. There was also a brand new pair of hiking boots, his exact size and favourite brand. Yes, Jack was surprised, yet at the same time this just proved how effective the Dragon are at anything they do. Jack didn't ponder too long and got washed up. Sleep came for Jack quickly, and so did the nightmares. That day of death was a forever bad dream. Chapter 7, The Enlightenment. Sunday morning came. Jack felt more comfortable in his hiking clothing. Following his favourite breakfast, jumbo porridge oats cooked in goat's milk with a teaspoon of honey, served hot in a bowl. Jack once again wondered just how the dragon knew this level of information about him. Clearly they had been observing Jack for some time before initiating contact. He wasn't going to let it bother him though. There was finally hope in Jack's mind. The kind of hope that there just might be revenge that he has hungered for more than any food. The type of hunger that cannot be satiated by standard means. Once back at the meeting room, the day was filled with names, photos, names, places, names, addresses, names, cars, towns, and more names. Jack's head was hurting trying to learn this much information at this pace. Nonetheless, he needed to. He was doing this for his wife now. There was no time for complaining. Get on with it, Jack, he thought. Every now and then a voice in his head would ask, why him? Why Jack? Surely with all this information, the dragon could at the very least prosecute these criminals. So Jack asked the question, why do you need me? I was waiting on you to ask that question, said Mr. Liu. You see, the hierarchy are criminals. They bribed the police to hide this information. They bribed the judge that failed us. The judge that you had removed from the court, continued Mr. Liu. They, the police, the judge and the hierarchy are all complicit in this. We cannot achieve justice with such a corrupt group. The most truthful speech in that courtroom was the speech that you made, Mr. Ruby. I could feel every syllable resonate with your desire for justice, revenge and vengeance. I understand you could not possibly deliver all of that on your own. I felt your pain that day, and as much as I feel responsibility for my dear niece, I also feel responsibility to you and your dear wife, Mrs. Ruby. Forgive me, Mr. Ruby, but we have studied you closely ever since. We needed to know everything about every aspect of this terrible event. You will never get justice from a corrupt group of officials. You are driven by justice and honour. These are important qualities. We don't need you in the simple sense of resources and power. We need you to achieve the same justice, revenge and vengeance that we need. We must stand together against the evil. One justice can overpower 100 evils, Mr. Ruby. We can help you achieve that burning desire in your very soul, Mr. Ruby. We knew that you would join us. Trust, honour, loyalty and fate, Mr. Ruby. Now let's focus on why you need us. We are bound by blood in this matter. We will not betray you, and we are sure that you will not betray us. It's a matter of principle, honour. We need each other, Mr. Ruby, and we can help each other. We will bring the hierarchy down and take everything from them. We will remove the corrupt officials, taking the weeds from the flower bed. Mr. Liu looked at Jack, and once again it was like telepathy. Jack knew that this new crazy just might work, and it didn't matter why the dragon needed Jack. Jack was grateful that he had finally had his prayers answered. For so long he had prayed and wished that the evil perpetrators would receive justice, and yet he never could have realised that it would come like this. It was late again and Jack was tired. He retired to his room and lay down on his bed. Jack's mind began to drift again, and then she was there, his wife, in his mind, speaking to him. So what are you going to do now? She asked him. Chapter 8. Rebuild, Reboot and Revenge. Jack woke up after another troubled sleep. I'm going to take the hierarchy down with the help of the dragon, he thought. Jack moved into a new phase. He handed his notice into his workplace and left his job. His house was put up for sale, and he told his sons that he was going for some time out to deal with some personal and private matters. Naturally, he would remain in contact from time to time. Jack knew that he had to distance himself to protect his sons if the hierarchy came looking for him. Bit by bit, Jack was removing his footprints of traceability. No social media, no property, no registered assets, no addresses, no workplace, no contact with relatives for now. Jack was going dark. The dragon provided a safe space for Jack to live, to study, to learn and to physically train. Jack now had a personal trainer, teachers of various languages, a technical wizard. Well, that's what Jack called him. Mr. Deshi was an expert in all technology. Months had now passed. Jack had become fitter, faster, had less pain, though it took much pain to achieve less pain, a strict diet, and he had learned how to use various forms of self-defense to his advantage. He didn't need to be an expert in everything, he just needed to know enough of everything to help him get by. A new phone was supplied to Jack by Mr. Deshey. Jack didn't care much for technology, and he couldn't see why he couldn't keep his old Honor phone, which he loved, albeit it was outdated now. So Mr. Deshey supplied Jack with the latest technology wrapped up in what looked like Jack's old phone case. "You've turbocharged my phone," said Jack as a smile cracked across his face. This phone could jump onto other phone conversations, could block security camera signals wherever he stood, as it emitted some sort of frequency that Jack just didn't understand. Jack could open keypad doors, locks, safes, and pay for most transactions using some untraceable technology. "I better keep it charged," thought Jack, as he couldn't do any of these things without it. Best of all, Mr. Deshey gave Jack a universal key fob. This thing could open any car, block the tracker, and allow Jack to take any vehicle in any situation. Jack regretted not studying computer science more when he was at school. These phones, fobs, televisions and watches can reveal so much. What world am I living in, thought Jack. And so the time finally came. Jack had rebuilt his mind and body. He couldn't quite believe it himself, these newfound skills and abilities. It's never too late to teach an old dog new tricks, he thought. Even the total reboot on his technology, Jack often joked that he had sausage finger pressing keypads one button at a time, and then he learned about voice control. Yes, it was new to Jack. He smiled briefly at the thought of it, but the smile didn't last. His thoughts returned to revenge. "I am ready," said Jack. Chapter 9, Fail to Plan, Plan to Fail. Mrs. Ruby had a saying that she often announced at her business coaching classes: fail to plan, plan to fail. Jack never fully comprehended the true play on words here. He never regarded himself as an educated man, least of all an expert in anything. However, the more that he thought of this phrase, the more that it resonated in his mind. Fail to plan, plan to fail, he mumbled to himself. He certainly was going to set out a plan, and furthermore a backup plan should the first plan fail. Jack sensed he was mind drifting again. "Yes, Jack, that is correct. It is most important to plan. We have taken much time to work on this plan," said Mr. Deshey, who clearly had overheard Jack's mumbling. "Please let us gather together in the meeting room," said Mr. Deshey. Jack agreed. He followed Mr. Deshey through to the meeting room. As if by magic again, Mr. Liu, Li Na and Jack's instructors appeared silently. Mr. Liu took position at the head of the table. Display screens lit up around the room as Mr. Deshey clicked his laptop. Mr. Liu announced, "Mr. Ruby, the time has come to further your skill set. You are about to set in motion the beginning of your journey. Like a locomotive setting off from the station, you haul a heavy burden. As you progress, you will pick up speed, and by the time you are close to your destination, you will be as a locomotive is without brakes, unstoppable." Jack enjoyed this newfound confidence in his abilities, but in his own mind remained humble in his thoughts. The talk began. There were maps, digital three-dimensional models of buildings, street views, locations, targets and goals to achieve. Jack's new work duty was to steal the BMW car with the new key fob that he had been given, then drive the car to a set location avoiding attention from the authorities and security, carry out strategic observance within the location and plant various electronic devices within the building itself. He would be equipped with basic disguise. He would have to blend in as if he were part of the environment. Hide in plain sight were Jack's thoughts. Once complete, he would return to the same car and return the car to the place where it came from without raising unwanted attention. The plan to fail section would be a backup crew disguised as municipal workers driving a replica municipal authority van. They would shadow Jack, record and report to Mr. Deshey and Mr. Liu. Li Na would be within the backup crew. This reassured Jack immensely. Even though he had never witnessed Li Na fully in action, he knew that she was better than 10 men in a barroom fight. Tomorrow, 0600 hours, it would be time. Chapter 10, The First Mission. 0500 hours seemed to come around slowly whilst Jack had a restless and sleepless night. Nervous, anxious and tired, Jack ate his breakfast. He didn't do well without it. Good old porridge oats and some honey for extra energy. Time to get ready. 0600 hours, Jack was in the van being driven into the city. Key fob, check. Comms, check. Phone, check. Tool bag, check. Camera spectacles, check. Digital watch, check. Jack was dressed in municipal authority overalls with safety boots, peak cap, high-vis vest and a nice pair of black leather gloves. He felt at home in this type of uniform and more comfortable at blending in. If you dressed Jack in a designer suit, shoes and designer watch, he'd crumble. He just didn't emit that type of image. Besides, most people, especially rich people, ignore workers in their workers' uniform. Jack realised that in the past. When Jack was that worker in real life, he'd speak to everyone as equals and go out of his way to speak to rude people just to put them on the spot. If he ever wanted someone out of his personal space, he'd tell them that he had a contagious sickness like vomiting or that he'd been cleaning the toilet and his hands were dirty. He would laugh internally as their face would turn in shock and move away from him. So yes, sometimes it's a great way to get rid of unwanted attention. The van moved smoothly between the morning commuters on the highway, an exact replica of a genuine municipal authority van with cloned registration plates. Municipal authority vans are always taxed, maintained, insured, and when passing ANPR, that's automatic number plate recognition cameras, they pass by without issue. The van arrived outside Dockland City right on schedule. The door opened and Jack stepped out onto a little side street, chosen specifically for the lack of cameras. Jack was on foot now, equipped with the tool belt and backpack. He'd checked the contents multiple times last night, repeatedly rehearsing. Clipboard, pen, devices, fake identification, a map of the building and locations pinpointed. Jack strode swiftly along the pavement. He moved with purpose and clear direction as if he did this every day. He was focused. Up ahead sat a BMW 3 Series car, parked alongside the pavement. Mr. Dicey's details were correct and exact. Jack approached the car, pulled his key fob from his pocket and pressed the button. The key fob kicked into action and the car unlocked. Jack took his backpack and tool pouch off, setting them on the rear seat. Looking relaxed on the outside but definitely not on the inside, he opened the driver's door. He entered, adjusted the steering, the seat, and started the car on guest driver mode. You see, these cars have a memory seat position. Whenever the true owner would return and press their key fob, the seat will adjust as the vehicle unlocks. Chances are they will do exactly as Jack did, and that is place their bag or coat on the rear seat first. By the time they would get into the driver's seat, it would have completed its adjustment, and in theory, they won't ever know that someone else had been in the car. Jack's key fob also switched the intelligent drive tracker into frozen mode, so it looked like the car was still parked exactly where it was originally. Jack also wasn't wearing any strong aftershave or deodorant. Any such smells lingering in the vehicle would alert the real owner that someone had been in the car. Next, start button. Seatbelt on and safety first, thought Jack as he smiled. The radio burst into loud, rubbish music. Jack turned it down. Must remember to turn the volume up before I leave it back, thought Jack. Mirror, signal, manoeuvre, and Jack pulled out onto the road. Jack's spectacles, IntelliSpecs as Jack referred to them, lit up in front of his eyes. A virtual GPS map from Mr. Dicey was guiding Jack turn by turn. Jack arrived at another street and parked. It was 0800 hours at this point and traffic parking wardens weren't going to be in this area until 10 o'clock. Jack had 90 minutes to get in, get the devices planted and get out again. Jack hoisted his backpack onto his shoulders, he strapped his tool pouch onto his waist and he ensured that his fake identification was clipped onto the front of his overalls for visibility. He strode directly into the service entrance of the building like he owned the place. The building in question was a large city high-rise office type structure with modern architecture and unknown business name, unknown to Jack anyway. It was a front, a face for the hierarchy, he had been told. This was an attempt to legitimise their funds from crime. Fancy up front and dirty out the back. Yep, that's them all right, thought Jack. No one would care that a pest control service worker was about to walk straight in through the back door. Yes, security at the front door, polished floors, doors and sculptures, suits and uniforms all busy in their duties. The rear of the building was all about deliveries, laundry service, cleaners, pest control, etc. And Jack would walk right in unchallenged. He nodded and smiled at folks as he passed and nobody cared. Jack stopped, secured his clipboard, map, instructions on pest control headed notepaper, and headed to his first point. Jack's duty was to install an electronic device into a plug socket adjacent a pest control point. A supposed sonic deterrent for rodents, apparently. In actual fact, it was one of Mr. Dicey's special devices. Jack reached his first point, knelt down, plugged the device in, and placed a little tick on his map and list. He moved swiftly, with purpose, and just like he did this every day, with confidence. So far, so good, thought Jack. Excuse me, hello, excuse me, said someone. Jack turned to see a little man in a suit staring at Jack. What are you doing? Said the man. Hello, sir, pest control, here to deliver the sonic rodent deterrent, said Jack. He immediately pushed the clipboard towards the man's face, his big fingers half blurring the details. I've 4 more to do, sir, and I'll be gone from your presence. I appreciate that this should have been carried out last night, and I can only apologise. My boss was insistent that I call first thing today. I did remind my boss that this work is strictly for outside of office hours, but my boss insisted that I come straight away. I apologise on behalf of the company, and I promise to be gone in the next few minutes. Yes, quite, said the man, looking at Jack's identification badge and uniform. This really isn't acceptable. We clearly stipulate no tradespeople within the main offices during office hours. You and your boss should know our policy, said the man. Yes, sir, absolutely. I'll be sure to report your complaint to my boss on my return. Your business is important to us, sir, and we wish to ensure that our service is premium. I believe there were reports of rodents from high up the chain of command, sir, and they really were quite insistent that this be dealt with this morning, said Jack. Ah, I see, said the little man in the suit. Well, quick as you can then, and off he went. You see, Jack knew that the little man in the suit was a job's worth. Someone exerting importance over others in some pathetic attempt to display power that he didn't have. Jack knew to play idiots like this. Act apologetic, call them sir, tell them you value them, and the final sledgehammer to crush the nut is to say that someone upstairs wants it done now. The little man in the suit is merely on the ground floor, lording over cleaners and tradespeople, whereas the CEO, having a tantrum from the penthouse, is always right. The little man is not going to go against the CEO's wishes, and so will back down. Jack turned, grinned to himself, and moved on. If anyone else were going to stop him now, he'd say that he'd already been stopped by the man in the suit and authorised to carry out his work. I love this new job, thought Jack. The last device was plugged in, marked on his map, and he made for the exit, returning through the service area and out to the car. Jack drove smoothly and within the speed limits through the city, moving carefully to avoid attention. Turning onto the side street where he began, Jack parked the car, turned the radio volume back up again. Remember the loud rubbish music moment? Lifted his gear and he locked it. His spectacles and telespecs flashed again before his eyes and alerted him that the van was waiting for him exactly where he was dropped off earlier. Jack walked off. So far so good. He entered the van and they returned to the Dragon headquarters for a review of Jack's actions. Jack felt like he had purpose again. Chapter 11. The Review. Jack returned to his accommodation, changed his clothes and made his way to the meeting room. Mr. Liu congratulated Jack on a smooth job. Then he revealed that it was a test of Jack's new skills, only not in the way that Jack thought it was. The car, the building, were owned by Mr. Liu's company. The guy in the suit was instructed to test Jack's nerve under pressure. Jack's driving was monitored through software in the car and his heart rate was monitored at all times via his digital watch. Cameras recorded all of Jack's movements and interactions, and this was recorded by Mr. Dicey for analysis. Little Suit Man had a microphone linked to Mr. Dicey recording all conversation. Everything was recorded and evaluated. Jack sat back in his chair and grinned. So did I pass the test then? He inquired. Yes, Mr. Ruby, you did, said Mr. Liu. Jack could see himself on the screens in the meeting room. So I was never in any real danger then. This was a simulation, a trial, a test. Mr. Liu responded, that's correct, Mr. Ruby. We needed to see if you could handle a real job and how you would react, how calm you would be under pressure, and most importantly, how you would deal with the curveball situation. Jack never considered that he was going on a test at all. To him, this was his first real job. However, it pleased Jack a great deal, knowing that he could succeed. that he could do this, and with the help and backing of the dragon, he could achieve justice. Mr. Liu spoke again and directed his comments to everyone in the room. The importance of this journey that we are about to embark on is beyond measure. Act with precision like a surgeon and deliver justice. Today, tomorrow, and every day forward, we will be the instruments and the tools that remove all value from the most despicable criminal gang in our history. We will act with honour, integrity and strength. Every successful venture and every business that we have built was built with values and principles. If it can't be done right, it can't be done. Therefore, we will do it our way. Every corrupt official, judge, lawyer, police officer and the criminals themselves will be brought to justice. The smart way, our way. Jack spoke. I will not rest until I fulfil my promise on this. For me, my dear wife, Miss Lee Wei, Miss Lee Na, and you, Mr. Liu, I am ready. Lee Na nodded to Jack, her expression still focused and serious. Mr. Liu acknowledged Jack. Yes, Mr. Ruby. We also will not rest. Now the real work begins. Chapter 12. The real work. Mr. Liu nodded to Mr. Deshi, his cue to begin discussing the first real job. Mr. Deshi brought the details up on the screens. Jack could see images of artworks, sculptures, a beautiful French chateau and a list of priorities. Apparently the hierarchy had a chateau in the Brittany region of France, secluded and private. Lee Na would be accompanying Jack on this mission. The task is to destroy all of this artwork, raid the safe for documents and burn the chateau to the ground. This will be the first of many messages of destruction to the hierarchy, said Mr. Deshi. After all, they don't care for people. They do, however, value their art, money, belongings and material things. Take away their money, take away their power and destroy them. Jack listened intently. He wanted to follow this instruction to the letter, to prove that he could keep going, to prove his value, because ultimately Jack wanted to be there on the final mission when vengeance would be delivered, however long that would take. Early start tomorrow, thought Jack. He gathered his things when the meeting was over and he went to bed. His head filled once again with memories. His wife spoke to him again. So you're doing this then? Wherever you go, I go. And we'll... Jack woke to the sound of his digital alarm. 0500 hours and no more dream time. Shame. He never got to hear what she was going to finish saying. Jack got ready. By 0600 hours, Jack was in a van with Lee Na and en route to a private air hangar. They took off in a light aircraft from a private airfield. Getting into France from Ireland was easy. The aircraft was small enough to come in under the radar and land in a well-kept field. Apparently the hierarchy weren't the only people to have a chateau in France. Mr. Liu also had a chateau. It was once a base for United States soldiers in World War II and it had its own small airfield. Mr. Liu had the facilities restored and in immaculate condition. The plane touched down. Jack and Lee Na exited the plane and took their backpacks to another van, waiting near the airfield. The van once again was disguised as a municipal authority vehicle, a perfect clone of a legitimate vehicle run by a local authority. Lee Na set up a link inside the van to connect to Jack, herself and Mr. Deshi using satellite internet running through a virtual private network, VPN. Jack trusted them by now and left that technical business to those that knew it best, the young and the eager. Jack was neither young nor eager and he regarded himself as old and bold, which brought another grin to his face. The hierarchy, like the other human beings, have habits. If you watch and observe human beings and wildlife, you can pick out habitual practices. In the hierarchy's case, they have an extended lunch every Thursday afternoon at their favourite restaurant. The restaurant was located at the old scenic side of a small French town, adjacent to small port, cobble streets, one-way traffic system and pedestrian-only walkways. This would be the perfect place to cause a distraction and lock them down in their restaurant, leaving their chateau vulnerable to attack. The plan seemed simple. Whilst the hierarchy were in their restaurant, a smoke bomb and fireworks would set off from a parked vehicle. This would simulate an explosion and bring emergency services into the old quarter of town. The streets would block solid and no one would get out in the traffic chaos. Jack's job was to drive the vehicle into position, park and walk away. Detonation of the smoke bomb and fireworks would be via a cell phone using an SMS message to trigger the detonators. The vehicle, an old Renault from the area, was driven by Jack. He was wearing his IntelliSpecs for navigation, a French-style hat with stick-on sideburns and moustache. He certainly looked like an older, eccentric, classic car-loving Frenchman. Jack navigated the streets, admiring the scenic location. He drove by the restaurant in question, not making eye contact and looking straight ahead. At the end of the street, the road turned 90 degrees to the left, and Jack parked the car a short distance along the street. Blocking this street would prevent everyone from leaving. He exited the car and walked a short distance to where the van was waiting to pick him up. He entered the van and Lee Na moved smoothly away to avoid attention. The municipal authority van blended right in. They made their way near to the chateau grounds and stopped at a lay-by on the roadside. This was common practice to see a municipal van in this type of place, as they emptied bins and collected trash from the roadside on a regular basis. Adjacent to the lay-by was a forested area, which was the boundary between the chateau and the roadside. Jack exited the van and moved swiftly through the forested area. On arriving at the edge of the tree line, he stopped, waited, and observed the chateau from a distance. The doors of the chateau opened and various people entered a black Mercedes S-Class and a black Mercedes G-Wagon at the rear of the S-Class. Both vehicles departed. Jack knew that there would be staff and security inside the chateau, so he had to be careful. Mr. Deshi was now locked into the chateau security system. He disabled perimeter sensors and created a freeze on the security monitors. Jack had an earpiece receiving communication from Lee Na, who was monitoring Jack from the van. "Move," she instructed. As per plan, Jack moved swiftly across the rear grounds of the chateau, using statues, bushes and trees for some cover. "Stop," she instructed. Jack waited against a large chestnut tree in the grounds. "Clear. Move," she instructed. Jack continued. Mr. Deshi's link to the camera system was perfect. Jack could move when areas were clear and freeze when he needed to lie low and out of sight from staff. Jack reached the chateau at the rear basement door, not used very often other than to store furniture by staff. It wasn't even locked. The cocky criminals had become lazy and complacent. Jack entered. "Wait," instructed Lee Na. Jack hunkered down and remained quiet. This allowed time for his heart rate to slow and for his mind to go through the plan again. He would wait here for further instruction from Lee Na. Chapter 13, Dinner with a Sizzle and a Bang. Mr. Deshi relayed the following. "The hierarchy have now arrived in Old Town, parking their VIP vehicles right outside the restaurant. Perfect. When that road is blocked, they won't be able to exit." The hierarchy entered the restaurant, all swagger and bluff like they owned the place. As per usual, drinks were already in place at their tables with food on the way. "Do you remember when I said people were creatures of habit?" "Yes. Well, here we are talking about how they go to the same restaurant at the same time, on the same day, to the same tables, and have the same drinks and meals. It's a restaurant's dream customer, allowing for the ability to forecast orders like this. So the hierarchy sit down, begin their drinks, lunch and discussions. Boom! Jack's old Renault was now smoking profusely and spitting out fireworks. People outside began to panic. The street became gridlocked quickly. Inside the restaurant, the hierarchy peered out through the windows. As far as they were concerned, this was the safest place to be, in the restaurant. The front and rear entrances were covered by their security. "No one will get in here," they boasted. As a precaution, they called for the chateau security team to make their way to the port and prepare an escape on a boat, just in case this was an attempted hit on them. They waited. Everyone was waiting. Meanwhile at the chateau, Jack could hear panicked voices upstairs. 5 security persons left the building and drove away in another Mercedes G-Wagon. "Move," instructed Lee Na. Jack moved quickly towards the staircase, his adrenaline pumping through his body. Quickly he found a fire alarm switch and he triggered it. Lights began to flash, alarms sounded, and voices of house staff could be heard shouting to each other to leave the chateau. The staff dutifully moved outside to their emergency assembly point. Jack moved swiftly to the next target, a fine, fragile sculpture. He took enormous pleasure in smashing it with a swift kick of his size 11 boot. The sculpture smashed and fell to pieces, scattering across the floor. Apparently it was worth 15 million. "Yeah, not anymore," laughed Jack. Room by room, Jack hit his targets. Next to fine artwork, Jack pulled out his multi-tool knife and slashed it, revealing the safe. Looking at the safe, he could see a digital locking device. Mr. Deshi instructed Jack to hold his phone against it and initiate the code breaker. The phone took about 30 seconds to break the code, and it seemed to Jack more like 30 minutes. The safe popped open. Jack removed his backpack. The contents of his backpack were 3 incendiary devices, and he lifted them out carefully. They were made from some type of highly volatile lithium compound connected to 3 cell phones linked to detonators. Another Mr. Dicey invention that could be remotely triggered by SMS messages. Once his backpack had been emptied, Jack refilled it with the contents from the safe. The first device Jack left in this room with the safe. The second device he left in a room on the next floor down, and the final incendiary device he left in the basement. Jack scanned the basement with his eyes for the fire suppression system that would activate the sprinklers in the event of a fire. Once he had located it, he disabled the system so it wouldn't activate in the event of a fire by removing the main fuse and connection. Complete, Jack communicated to Lena as he positioned himself at the basement door. "Rears clear the tree line. Move," ordered Lena. Jack moved as quick as he could. He wasn't an agile runner, more of an elephant in a bad mood type runner. Jack smiled as he ran, picturing said angry elephant. Lena confirmed to Mr. Dicey that she had eyes on Jack clear of the chateau. Mr. Dicey triggered all 3 incendiary devices. By the time Jack had reached the tree line, the chateau was engulfed in flames. Fortunately for Jack, and unfortunately for the chateau, fire tenders were busy in Old Town navigating the gridlock to reach the suspected bomb explosion. Due to an inoperable fire suppression system and no fire tenders available, the chateau burned. Meanwhile, in Old Town, the hierarchy were well and truly stuck in their restaurant. The backup security couldn't get to the port as the police had closed the streets. No one was getting in or out except for emergency services. On examination, the fire tender staff declared that the bomb was a hoax. It was merely smoke pellets and firecrackers. No one was hurt, thankfully. One big distraction, one successful strike, one destroyed chateau, and one very angry hierarchy. No one was hurt at the chateau, as all staff had dutifully evacuated the premises to their external assembly point on hearing the alarms. Well, apart from the ego, vanity and finances of the hierarchy, they were definitely hurt. But that's the whole point. Chapter 14, The Escape. By the time that the hierarchy got out of Old Town, the chateau was completely destroyed. A smoking, smouldering pile of rubble. Art worth millions, gone. Sculptures charred and broken. The safe door open and contents gone. Clearly this was planned. Clearly someone did this and knew exactly what they were doing. The hierarchy knew that they had been played, but by whom? They had no evidence, no camera footage, no witnesses, nothing. How was this possible? The leader of the hierarchy had become lazy and complacent. Once an unknown entity, secretive and private, he had become lax in his approach from years of being at the top and surrounded by security. The world that he lived in wasn't at ground level anymore. Thinking that he was untouchable led to this laziness and complacency. The company that he kept and the places that he frequented, it became inevitable that his real identity would surface somewhere. Criminals are always trying to get one up on each other too, and regularly talk. Informers, giving away information in return for money. Leniency from investigators, or just jealousy, take your pick. It soon became known that the leader of the hierarchy was known as Big Joe. Needless to say, it didn't take Mr. Dicey very long to find out lots of information on Big Joe and his chateau, particularly the restaurant bookings. What a gift that was. Big Joe was angry now. Someone had just walked right in, emptied his safe, and then destroyed millions in art objects and a chateau worth millions. Ironically, most of this wasn't insured, as it was illegal gains in the first place. Big Joe turned to his corrupt cops to lean on them for information, but they too would have nothing, not a trace. At this stage, Lena and Jack were a long distance away, quietly returning to the airfield of Mr. Lou's property. The van was parked in an underfloor lift-style parking bay, so if anyone did investigate the garage, they would see some tools and an old tractor parked on the garage floor level, whilst the van was safely hidden underground. The van would be useful again, so it was important to keep it hidden from prying eyes. Once locked up and secured, Lena and Jack took off in the light aircraft again, quietly in and quietly out. Jack now had a backpack of goodies to present to Mr. Lou. Chapter 15, The Review. Jack, Lena, Mr. Lou and Mr. Dicey congregated together in the meeting room once again. Mr. Lou spoke first. "Mystery fire damages historic chateau," reads one headline in the news, and Old Town suffers bomb hoax, reads another. The real headline is that the hierarchy have lost 45 million in fine art, sculptures, paintings and the chateau itself, most of it uninsured. However, our prize lies in the contents of your backpack, Mr. Ruby. Documents with names, contact numbers, locations, movement data, storage disks, an encrypted phone and a laptop. I look forward to your full analysis, Mr. Dicey, in due course. Mr. Dicey nodded and spoke to affirm so. Yes, sir. Mr. Lou spoke again, this time to Jack. Mr. Ruby, have you anything to add, reference your experience on this particular expedition? Jack grinned, smiled almost and responded, I'm looking forward to the next expedition. When and where are we going? Mr. Lou rarely smiled, not in Jack's presence anyway. However, on this occasion, Jack did notice a little change in Mr. Lou's normally serious expression. Just a little, mind you. Lee Na rarely spoke in front of Jack at meetings. Jack assumed that Lee Na and Mr. Lou talked much more behind the scenes, and these meetings were more for Jack's benefit in spoken English. Lee Na and Mr. Lou tended to make eye contact and nod occasionally, almost as if they could communicate telepathically. In Jack's terminology, they played their cards close to their chest. Jack would be useful whilst he was useful. Jack only needed to know what he was told. Jack didn't care. He was going to use this opportunity for all that it was worth. The common enemy remained, as did the common bond and the common desire for vengeance. Mr. Lou spoke again. This is only the beginning, Mr. Ruby. We must break our common enemy. We must ruin their assets, destroy their business incomes, entrap the corrupt, and drain their power in every way possible. A gang lord with no money, no assets, no income, no loyalty, no integrity is nothing. Once that gang lord reaches that stage, he will have no power, no way to get out of jail free, no friends in the justice system, no loyalty from criminals, and zero respect because he will be seen as weak. Once he is a has-been, we will strike. We will bring him for justice, for vengeance and for honour. The price that he will pay cannot be paid in money, fine art or material wonders. Are you willing to continue, Mr. Ruby? Will you walk this path with us to the end? Jack stood up to stare at Mr. Lou with serious intent. Images of his dear wife resurfaced in his mind again, creating a heated fire inside him. All eyes were on Jack again. Jack spoke. I give you my solemn oath. I am here to the end. Whether that's the end of me or the end of the scum hierarchy, I am here. I will go anywhere. I will do what is required. I am motivated more than ever to destroy them. Mr. Lou responded. I can see that you are, Mr. Ruby. Take a seat. We have much to discuss on our next expedition. Thank you for completing the introduction to the Jack Ruby Chronicles. I hope that you've enjoyed this introductory glance into the life of Jack Ruby and how this life-altering events began. Please consider following Jack through his chronicles of revenge, justice and adventure with the assistance of the dragon and their battles to deliver justice to the hierarchy. The next story in the series is Chronicle 1, Rubies Are Red. Thank you for listening. The Jack Ruby Chronicles. Jack Ruby is an ordinary man who's been dragged into a terrible event. The assassination of his wife and her friend. His deep-rooted desire for justice and revenge leads him on a journey with unexpected allies. The evil perpetrators must be brought to justice. Criminal empires stretching from Ireland to France and the USA must be dismantled. Jack's allies, powerful, strong, dutiful and loyal, are in the game for the same reasons as Jack. Where will it end? Will Jack find justice? Will Jack's enemies pay for their sins? Absolutely they will, but maybe not in the way that you think. Jack Ruby Chronicles, Rubies Are Red. Jack Ruby, now fully entrenched with the dragon, must take on the first target on his list, Jimmy Power. A battle of young versus old and brain versus brawn. Will Jack succeed? New information leads to a nighttime heist of ill-gotten gains from the hierarchy. Will the dragon strike a blow where it matters? Intelligence, strategy and timing are all that stands between failure and victory. The old and bold ride again and the hierarchy won't see it coming.